I'm the lead.
I'm Dr. John.
We got a guest.
Distinguished guest here, Mr. Frank Worley.
Howdy.
Looks like Elvis, don't he? That's because he does great Elvis shows. He's being a guy on our podcast tonight, and got some interesting stuff you're going to want.
We're not even going to say. You're just going to find out. Hit it.
And Dr. John, the podcast flow, telling you right, and all out in all. One brings the knowledge, the other keeps it straight. The change in the hands and the brain spin fast. Dropping knowledge bombs on the mic. Dr. John keeps it straight and making sure it's tight. Together they're a force, a podcast duo so fly, bringing truth and wisdom, reaching for the sky. And Dr. John, Enuff Already, let it out.
All right. Well, we're going to get started here with Frank. He's you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, Frank, and tell him what we're going to talk about?
Yeah, I'm Franklin Thomas of the family Worley. I'm a living man living on Ohio as American State National.
There you go. You hear that? American State National. This is going to be an interesting podcast. You guys are going to want to watch this because we just discussed a bunch of this, didn't we, Ed?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
So where do we want to start at?
Oh, about a year. I've been studying this for about 5 years. I've been researching it, and then a year ago I went through the whole declaration process and educated myself with the Ohio Assembly and got my declarations turned into our recorder, and for a full year now I've been living as a living man on the soil jurisdiction on Ohio.
I like how you say that, on Ohio.
Correct.
Not in.
Yes, that's a lot of language changes, a lot of things you got to learn when it comes to terminology, when it comes to American State National. It's about staying in your lane, staying in your jurisdiction. It's all about jurisdiction.
Yeah, and on Ohio is better than in Ohio, because in Ohio, then you're submitting to the...
That's another jurisdiction. You're talking about another service corporation.
I mean, the wording is so important, as we were discussing this. The wording on everything is so important, how you...
Right.
Yeah, it has to be.
It seems like that's the most important, actually. That's how you word things.
So, you went and applied for this, or whatever...
Yeah, you do a 1779 declaration, and you file this with your recorder. Before we get into the paperwork stuff, I probably want to just give a little background history on like how this really to wrap your head around this thing, because anyone that's interested about a state national, you got to wrap your head around it. You got to tell yourself and be okay with telling yourself you got, because you've been lied to for generations now, and trying to correct all that, it takes a lot of uneducating as you're relearning.
Yeah,
what this is, because it's enough to make some people go like, oh, come on.
Well, when we're sitting here discussing things, you're wrapping my head around a pole, and I'm going, holy cow, man, this is a lot to take in.
It is.
It makes sense.
That's why it makes sense.
That's why we'll try to keep it narrow, and then and we could go down specific rabbit holes from that. I mean, another show, but
just keep in mind I barely got out of high school, so keep it on that kind of level.
So yeah, this basically all started where on Ohio, like land and soil jurisdiction. We're talking about there's three jurisdictions. The term law stands for land, air, water. That's where law comes from. So there's three different jurisdictions that, as people, we live in on this world. So the Vatican, that's like air jurisdiction. Then London, that controls all the courts, the bar, the British Credit Registry. That's maritime law, law of the water. That's where all of our courts operate, law of the water. And then you want to get back on the land and soil, because what people don't realize is you got basically kidnapped and trafficked on paper when you were born, and the birth certificate system is what has allowed the British courts to do, to basically subdue us and exploit us.
And you keep saying the British courts and this bar, and our attorneys are associated with the bar. So you're trying to tell me that
they took an oath. Yeah, they took an oath.
That's actually coming from England, not from it's not a thing in the United States.
And you have to be part of the bar to work in these courts that are currently controlling our country,
which is controlled by England,
which is conflict of interest.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. So where did the common law courts go? Well, sometime after the end of the Civil War, or war between the states, Lincoln exercised, kind of went too far with the way he ran that, trying to preserve the Union, And then they had the Reconstruction Act, which they never resolved. They never resolved the Reconstruction Act. That's why we've been under our wartime flag this whole time ever since then. You know, that's our peace flag. That's the civil flag.
Yes.
The land and soil.
Put that up for you tonight.
The real people, the real people of America on the land and soil jurisdiction. We've been at peace for over 100 years. I mean, this should be our register. Both of them are registered flags under the UN. They're both the title for a flag. There's peacetime and wartime. We've all grown up only seeing this flag, not even knowing that when it existed.
Well, the country's been at war pretty much our whole lives. I
The
mean,
business corporation has.
right.
The maritime law, the imposters that have built a government overlaying the real government, they've been at war. It's a money-making machine.
Right.
The whole,
Yeah.
the military-industrial complex. But as far as the land and soil jurisdiction people, we're at peace. There's nobody in the land and soil jurisdiction that's declared a war against anything. Mm-hmm. Except for trying to re-educate people under God and getting your inalienable rights back and exercising that to the bullies that are running the show.
You pretty much say that the government's like a corporation.
100%. No different than a McDonald's or whatever. It's the same thing. And that all goes back to the crown. That's all British controlled.
It's all connected.
That's how they funnel the money too. So we're all being exploited, but knowing where you belong is how you get back to the land and soil, and then you're not tied to that legal system because you rightfully belong to a lawful system. And the lawful system's based on God's law, Ten Commandment law. Like, it's very basic, you know, do not harm, do not trespass. It's very simple. It's like you don't need, was it like over, what I heard, 8 million man-made legal laws all over the world or something. That's ridiculous.
Well, they got a law for everything.
Just frivolous law, and that's what gives them the right to keep harassing and punishing you and debt slave you and always try to extort you for money for things that you shouldn't be accountable for, along with trying to buy your own rights back.
So you doing this kind of exempts you from all this bar law and all this maritime law and all this.
I don't know if exemption is the right word. It just doesn't exist to me.
Okay.
You don't recognize it.
You don't recognize it.
It shouldn't recognize me, and I don't recognize it. I don't. Why? It's frivolous law. It's not God's law. You know, you're trying to get back under God's law, not man's law, and just live a peaceful self-governance life. You know, under God, under land and soil jurisdiction. Get out of the law of the sea. Get back on land. It's all coming home. When you come home, when I read my declaration, my 1779 declaration to our Ohio Assembly recorder, and after I get done reading off each page, and it was such a good feeling when Lisa on the other end of the line goes, okay, well, and on the Zoom call, like, okay, well, welcome home. And it was like, that was so cool. I just like, yes, like, you did it.
It was exhilarating then.
It is.
And then you were saying something about somebody who's trying to sue you?
Oh yeah, it's just a prime example of like how this works.
I want you to read that letter you wrote.
There it is.
Just trying to pull you back into the system.
Yeah,
Show them how the wording goes.
Yes, a person was trying to contract me to appear in one of the law of the water courts for something. I still don't even know what it was about. So I talked to some of my advisors with the Ohio State National Assembly, and he looked at it and the summons, and he looked at it, he goes, okay, here's what you got to do. We're going to send a certified letter to that court, and we're going to simply calmly explain to them that, sorry, you made a mistake because you have no right to talk to me. And here's why. It's because they send you a summons, all capital letters. That all capital letters, that's that legal stuff that's tied from your birth certificate, all those things that you're contracted into with the all caps stuff, that's the incorporated you. You have like basically an avatar that is tied to the legal system, and that was when you got tricked into be given away at birth into the maritime law system, and you have the right to get it back. So this court case here, I have to explain to them, you're looking for the wrong guy.
Yeah, it's not
You
me.
are, yeah, exactly. You're looking for that straw man, but guess what? That ain't me anymore. So with this thing, with this court case, it's like, so two. I'm not going to say I'm not going to say the judge's name.
We keep the words.
So so two such and such, a woman who sometimes acts as a judge, which is true.
That is very true. She
like
acts like a
that.
judge.
It's their job. I mean, but you want to put them on notice that you know who they are. They work for a corporation. They pretend like you work for the people, but they don't. They work for the crown. Mm-hmm. They're not in your best self-interest. So you just put them right away, just calmly and politely put them in their place. Make them address you as a man and woman, because they can't. They don't have that jurisdiction. So you go through there. I, a man, Franklin Thomas of the family Worley, received your correspondence dated such and such, delivered. I believe you have made a mistake and have misidentified me, which they have. They did. They were addressing a version of me, a business incorporated version of me that doesn't exist anymore. I've separated myself from that lawfully. And it says, I live on the land and soil on Ohio, and Ohio State. That's another important thing. And I am a man on Ohio land and soil and have providence on public record, because everything that we do is always published, and publishing is the correct way. We don't register.
That's the record of it.
Yeah, you don't go registrar, you don't go registry. That's all British, again, more British.
Terminology.
Yeah, and things that tie you to things you shouldn't be tied to, and
Right.
that's how you end up paying back for rights you already have. So, best racketeering system in the world, if you think about it. I'm going to sell you back something you already have. That doesn't make sense to me.
It's like the mob.
Yeah. I said, thank you for your offer to contract with you and your court, because that's what that subpoena or the summonings was. It's
Pretty much a
basically
contract,
they're
yeah.
trying to pull you into their corporation. You're like, ain't having it. I do not consent to join her with the legal fiction you have addressed in your correspondence, nor do I consent to contract with you and or your court at this any past, present, or future. You just lay it out real simple. And then,
I do notice
and
you
it
do
also
have
says,
capitals.
please correct your records immediately. It's okay to use capitals, but the capitals in your wording is definitely shows a lot of intent, especially even in our Constitution. There's certain
Means you're
things-
shouting.
There's certain words they capitalize to enunciate like really the stress points and factors and stuff too. So it says, please correct your records immediately. So they say, you made a mistake. I'm not who you're trying to reach. I'm giving you notice that you've made a mistake, and update your records. And see ya.
You're out.
Thanks for offering.
And
Yeah. Never heard from him again.
that's interesting.
Never heard from him again. You won't. You put them. I mean, if you put something in check or on notice, in the most polite ways, because you don't want to ignore. If you ignore them, the courts have a thing. The courts have a thing that if you just ignore something and don't answer it,
All piles up.
It gives them accountability to like call you guilty or like an admission of guilt. It's like by acquiesce. If you don't respond by like the third time, they're just gonna make up their own rules and say, oh, well, you must be guilty, and we'll just do what we want. So,
They do, too.
So you have to address it, so you don't leave anything
Yeah, the
hanging.
innocent till proven guilty thing is gone. It's a thing of the past. There's no innocent till proven guilty.
Not in these courts.
Unless you've done something absolutely heinous.
They don't work.
And then they'll let you
These
just
courts,
do-
they don't work for you.
No.
And that's the way the land and soil, the jurisdictions work. Get out of the maritime law, which is similar to martial law, since after after the Civil War and stuff, the Reconstruction Act that was never settled. And so that's why we got into this mess in the first place, by these courts took over our common law courts. Like the last common law court in operation, I think, was around like 1863, and I think they kept in a very not polite manner, just started eliminating the courts, and then the military courts were the only thing that was operating, and under the bar system, which is a conflict of interest of taking an oath to another country.
So who is really behind all that? I mean, what you're talking about? I mean,
The king, the crown, that's how they
you said like the Vatican and the Crown.
the three places on the planet that don't belong to the jurisdiction of the state it belongs to, the Vatican and the Bank of London and Washington, D.C., District of Columbia.
Well, I find that interesting because we have the District of Columbia.
Yeah, which means actually, technically, they don't have to abide by the Constitution there.
That's interesting.
It's its own thing. It doesn't belong to the United States. It's a territory.
And that's something
Why do you
weird
think
to
the people
about.
sitting in J6 gulags over there, they're not getting any due process?
Because they're not part of the country.
They're not in the country.
No.
It is like, it's like just, that's, consider it Disneyland. It's a private corporation. But once you're on their property, they can do with you as they wish.
By their rules.
Yeah, and you don't know it. I was at J6. I could be sitting there right now, unlawfully. I mean, just wondering
Were
what
you
the
there
heck.
at J6?
Yes, I was there.
Lucky you didn't get hauled to the pokey.
No, I stayed on the grass. I was just taking pictures. I know you shouldn't go or shouldn't trespass, but
Right.
but
they just lately come
that
out.
whole charade's another show.
Yeah.
Well,
I just
yeah.
wondered if you were there.
We should
Yeah.
do one. Frankie, we should come back and do that show with us.
What's that?
A J6 show.
Oh, yeah.
'Cause some of
If
the
you were
information
there.
that's come out recently is pretty interesting.
Yeah,
We won't get on
yeah.
that tonight.
All of us tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists were right.
Right.
I've wore out 3 tinfoil hats, I said last week.
They give one out free in every box. You know that?
But I keep wearing them out because it keeps coming true. I got to get a new one because I done wore it out. I said, man, I need a new tinfoil hat. I wore that one out.
I should have showed up with one. That'd been great. I would have got struck by lightning.
Well, just so we don't get struck by lightning in the shop.
Yeah, right. Where do we go from here as far as?
How about contacts? How would somebody go about becoming one?
You have to locate, I don't have the website in front of me, but the Ohio Assembly. Every state has its own state national assembly, and that's how it works. The power resides in the states. All the states have the power. The states created the federal government. So it's not the other way around. All this federal overreach and in the the Constitution is our social contract with this government, well, with our true government. The incorporated one pretends it's going to abide by that, but their federal overreach is gross.
And if you notice, he says state national, not nationalist. It's not like some weird white supremacy cult like the internet tries to say it is.
There's
It's
so
called
many.
state national.
There's a lot of misconceived everything about state nationals. They try to compare it like, well, you got diplomatic immunity. No, I don't. I have to be a responsible citizen. It's self-governance. You still want to live in an orderly society. It doesn't give me the right to run amok on ignoring the
do
orderly
unlawful
society.
things.
Yeah, exactly. You still go to speed limit, do what you think. A term that is commonly done, I think this was done by one of the agencies on purpose to have disinformation out there, was the term sovereign citizen.
Yeah.
That is the dumbest. Don't ever say that. Don't ever say that. It's ignorant. It's an oxymoron. You can't be sovereign and a citizen at the same time. You can't be beholden to a state in a contract kind of way, and then, citizen, you break that down, it has meaning too, and sovereign at the same time. So which is it? It can't be both. So they do that to confuse people and make it all like
Somebody's
mud up the waters.
doing it on purpose to throw that in there to muddy it
Right,
up.
because they don't want the truth out there. They always want to cover up the facts and not give you, because why would they want to empower the people to get smarter? Then they're going to wake up and push out the bad guys.
Well, they don't want the people to wise up.
Well, they are.
That's a
It's
fact.
slow, but it's
Yeah.
really starting to crescendo now. It's kind of a nice thing to watch.
If you'd asked me 5 years ago if I thought I'd been doing stuff like this,
Yeah.
kind of like I don't know what you want to call a political activist or just whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, well,
But I woke up.
Well, when you start to find your own research and you start asking questions and start listening to different podcasters and stuff like that, and as the things you start to discover, and you have to use your own discernment. You can't just believe everything you hear. But certain key words, when I first started hearing about the state national thing, it was right around the J6 time from that, and it really intrigued me. That's why I said I was looking into it for almost 4 years before I actually got a hold of some people that actually did it, because you kind of go, it's kind of, that sounds a little too good to be true, right? Or it can't be that simple. There's got to be something to it. And I actually met people that are in it, but had done the process, been living their lives that way. And when you start going to some places and meeting and talking to them, you know that this is real. This isn't BS. This is real.
About how many people just in Ohio?
I don't have a current number, but
I mean, roughly.
I mean, I want to say, I don't want to quote a number because I don't know exactly. And I don't want to.
More than 10, though, right?
Oh gosh, yeah. There's thousands. Yes, there's thousands. There's thousands, and it's growing. I mean, we always have a term called "papered up." Like you get someone, you get they get the email from our recorder, and it has all the forms you can download and a lot of material to read, and you get your 1779 declaration. And you get all the process going, and then once you get that final recording done, and you're papered up. Now you have become official. So it's published, public record, and now it's gold. Because once it's published, it's official. You have declared your independence from local, state, and federal jurisdiction, and put yourself back on the land and soil. So that it's like done, said and done. No question.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I said with that letter. I said with Providence. So that means I got the papers, man. I got the receipts. Yeah.
So you won't have. So you're gonna let your license run out. You won't have plates in your car, and the cop pulls you over, and he starts giving you a bunch of crap. What are you gonna do?
You stick to the script. And you know what to say, how to declare it, how to say it, and no matter what kind of person you're dealing with, you're not there to say they're wrong by insulting them or get angry or get loud or to lose your composure.
Disrespectful.
You always do everything politely. If they're not getting it, okay, they're not getting it. But they choose, and they what they call their superiors, and you read down the thing, you put them in their place, you tell them in your jurisdiction. They shouldn't have the right to talk to you because you work for a private corporation that's beholden to the legal maritime law system court. I don't belong to that. It's the same thing if you pulled over an Amish person in a horse and buggy. An Amish person, technically, they're not getting birth certificates, so they never left the land and soil jurisdiction.
And they leave those people alone.
They're honestly, because legally they can't. I mean, you might get a bully here and there or a bad apple, but they can't. So I think the Amish people truly know their jurisdiction also. But but because they're in a horse and buggy, they're nothing to explain. But
Right.
we know what to say.
Pretty obvious.
Yeah, there's a lot of things
sometimes
that
you
they're
can't.
not involved
We're
in
not there
also.
to teach somebody out in state national on the side of the road. We say what we need to say, and if they got to call it in, they know what's up. All police departments know what state national. One of the 5 states of citizenship and 3 of them belong to the maritime law system, and then 2 of them are actually land and soil jurisdiction. So of those 5, so you shouldn't be allowed to become a police officer if you don't know this. I mean, so you got to know how to handle it. So you just let that play out. If anyone decides to forcefully pull me into their corporation, I'm a land and soil jurisdiction. I belong in your jurisdiction. It's like you can't grab me on the street and make me work at your McDonald's.
Yeah.
So we go in and they're put on notice, especially everything's being recorded in the car by them and you. And then I have the right to bill you for taking up my time, X amount of dollars, or whatever your rate's going to be, say $1,000 an hour. And you bill it. You don't sue them. There's nothing to sue for. They're wrong. They're wrong from the get-go. And by the time if they drag you into the jail or whatever, and Like, the superior realizes this guy is really a state national, it's like, oh, we messed up, like, get him out of here.
Get him out of here.
It's never happened, you know?
Now, is this happening all over the country?
Yes, every state has its own assembly, and they're growing. They have officers in those assemblies. They have weekly, monthly meetings and updates, and because the whole ultimate goal is to get all these assemblies to eventually build their working common law courts in their states. And it takes time, and you need people to donate their time, education, act as roles, because we got to put together a jury, we got to put like a sergeant at arms, we got to put, we got to have the proper working things to run a court. Once you can run a court, you could run the system.
You know what? I'm dying. I got to ask this one question. So, what would happen if everybody does this?
Ex parte Milligan, that's what's going to happen, and that means we're going to tell the maritime law courts, these illegal operating courts, to vacate premises, take the bar and shove it. Get out. And because of set precedent and court cases that have been won in the past, it's already written in stone that that's what's going to happen.
I mean, if everybody...
It's exciting, because...
if everybody did this, I'm thinking, wow, what could possibly happen if everybody decided and they just...
It's exciting to watch.
Because
it goes back to the way we work.
Or a huge majority, you know, a huge majority of people where we outweighed the ones that didn't, where it was like 60 or 70%.
Say there's more of us than there is of them.
Yeah, and they don't want us educated, they don't want us to get smart, they don't want us to basically grow up and be responsible for ourselves.
Right.
Self-governance, you got to be well educated about common law to basically, you got to operate in it, because you don't want to trip up and break your jurisdiction by saying the wrong word or signing your name in the wrong place, or unknowingly entering into a contract that ties you into the bar system, courts and stuff. So because you got to be really careful in your language and the way you say certain words, and how you write your documents, and how you copyright your name and things like that to stay in your lane so that you can't be tricked. And it's fun to watch, because even just the time I've been in here, like, it's just progressively, people are learning, people are educating themselves, the numbers are going up, which means people are waking up and finding their own inalienable rights again under God, and not having to be these service contract slaves for this system that they're tied to, that unwillingly and unlawfully, like at birth. So, and getting that birthright, reclaiming your birthright's what this is all about. You reclaim your birthright, you declare independence from those jurisdictions, repatriate to the land and soil on public record, and now you have your rights by God not getting sold back to you by the court.
I really liked what you said about, I asked you about the taxes. And,
It's already unlawful in the Constitution, but then they tried to say, oh, we're going to do this because after the war it's going to be temporary. Yeah.
Yeah, temporary. When's anything the government done been temporary?
What's ever been put up that's ever been repealed, right? Yeah, sure. But it's unlawful. And that was one of the reasons why we even got into that social contract in the first place, is to get out of that.
I gotta say, just sitting here talking, just looking online, this stuff's very easily found. You can find this stuff.
Yeah, it's not hard. I mean, if you seek it out on the
Any
internet,
Google search will take you right to exactly what you're talking about.
When my process, they give you this checklist here that it gets very well explained. You just follow the steps.
You even got a certificate.
I even got like that when they do an online course about the state and national stuff, which is incredibly interesting. You're relearning history. You're relearning all this history you never knew about, and it's all little things. Some things connect the dots. You go, oh wow, like that's why. Oh, I always thought about that. And even learning about the power of constitutional sheriffs versus incorporated sheriffs, things about even the differences in badges, that little clues, little tips and things about cap star versus pointed star, corporation versus constitutional sheriff. There's limits on power.
That's why your sheriff's badges are different from your city cop's badge.
Oh, it goes further than that, like the pointed star versus cap star.
Well, actually,
there's unlimited power, and then there's limited power. So, right. And that has to do with like constitutional or incorporated.
I was reading about some of this, and they were actually claiming like the sheriff has more power, according to these, than
sheriffs have
than any other
power.
Legal type enforcement.
Well, your
agency.
sheriffs are voted in. They're not appointed. They're voted in by the citizenship.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's usually statewide jurisdiction kind
Yeah.
of power, but there's also incorporated in constitutional too. Actually, some of the positions of that they're filling with these Ohio assemblies is to have their working courts is they have to get in people that are going to run a vote within the American State Nationals and get voted in as a constitutional sheriff of the land and soil jurisdiction. That jurisdiction has the ultimate authority. It would trump a incorporated sheriff's authority.
Well, that's interesting.
That is very interesting.
Because
He's digging into some deep
it's
stuff,
under
ain't he?
God. It's something, those are rights granted by under God. They're a de facto operation, a de facto government corporation. That's a subcontractor, like all your ABC divisions,
Three-letter agencies.
your three-letter agencies, all of them. They're all that alphabet soup. They're all subcontractors of a corporation that's acting as our lawful government when it's not. So that's a big trick, and you got to wrap your mind around that, and then start to understand the lanes between the two different jurisdictions. Law of the land, law of the water. Get back on common law, understand how to stay there, and not get tricked into getting tied into the corporation stuff, and not accidentally giving up or losing a right or losing any of your power. So you
You
got
gotta buy all your rights back, right down to even owning your dog. You have to have,
Oh, yeah.
your fishing license. You can't.
Yeah,
go
you
fishing.
How ridiculous.
You never should have to register anything. You shouldn't have to permit, you had to go like, just to gravel your driveway, they want a $15 permit down at the,
Right.
whatever. And you're like, come on, you should have the right to, it's your
Well, a
house.
lot of that's about money
It's for a lot of things, but,
and
Well,
control.
that's more extortion.
Keep
he's
you under
talking
their
about.
thumb.
yeah, why are you always buying your own rights back? You already have the rights.
You gotta pay to put
You know,
gravel on your own
common sense.
driveway. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
it's
What do you
common
do?
law.
It's
Yeah.
true.
I don't pay him shit. I just do what I want.
John,
That's why I live in
you
Ashland
didn't say
County.
that.
He likes really,
joking.
better ask for.
I'm not joking.
He asked for forgiveness, not permission. Though.
Yeah, I asked for forgiveness afterward and say, listen, I just had to do it and tough.
I don't know if that's going to work at home though. I don't know.
I don't even ask for forgiveness. I just said, that's how it's going to be.
Oh yeah, so I don't know. There's.
Hey, I got to ask another question. This is totally off the topic, but I told my wife I'm going to do this to you. Do you love peanut butter and banana sandwiches?
As long as you don't have a peanut allergy, who wouldn't?
Well, that was Elvis's favorite sandwich.
That's what they say. There's different variations of that, but yeah.
I just had to ask
I
you.
think
'cause
Elvis had a lot of favorite
I figured
foods.
he knew everything about Elvis because he does all those fantastic shows all the time.
That's a lot of research too.
I bet it is.
I think there's more to learn about his life than it is to research all this government stuff.
Oh, I wouldn't want to
There's
be
a lot-
you.
there's a lot of stuff
He was
there.
definitely an interesting guy.
Oh, don't know what
We
else
didn't
to
do
say
a
here.
rant tonight.
We did but the birth certificate's one more thing too.
Oh, go ahead.
One thing you didn't understand about when you're reclaiming your birthright and you're put under unlawful contract at birth at the hospitals, what they sign, you're being signed away, by your parents because they don't know. The last 5 generations of parents,
They don't know.
They didn't
That's
know.
just
We were
what
all
you do.
Yeah, you just follow suit. You're thinking you're doing the right thing. Those are filed away in some place you don't see. I mean, that's a long form. The copy of their birth certificate you have at home is a short form. But on the back of that long form, there's a number on the back, and that would be like your chattel number. Actually, because you're a debt slave, and you want to live. You're trying to get out of living in this tied contract world where you're constantly being nickeled and dimed to death and taxed and paying for this and paying for all your rights back and all stuff. Because as long as you're living in that maritime law system under that contract, that unlawful contract, you don't have rights under God. You have privileges, and those privileges, some of them you got to either pay for, or you have to somehow fight for them or to get them back in different situations. And the maritime law courts know this. They know what they're doing. They know that when you walk across that bar in court, you're a dead vessel at sea. That's the way the maritime law court system works. All of your straw man, your capitalized names on your birth certificates and all your legal forms and stuff, That's not you. That's that representation of you.
The corporate you.
And they know that. They know that is dead at sea, dead in the water. So, and they know that. So that's why you have to have a lawyer represent you. Your dead man can't speak. So they know what they're doing. They know the game. And they got you. You cross that bar, especially, you walk into their jurisdiction. That's why they call it the bar. That little gate. Like, once you cross that,
I represented
You're
myself
dead.
in court one time.
it's not that you can't. It's just they don't have to acknowledge or accept anything you say.
You know what I did to the judge? He says, do you want to take the stand? I said, I don't know, Your Honor. I said, let me ask you a question. I said, what do? I said, do I go up there and sit in the stand, run back down here in front of the table, ask myself a question, run back up there and answer it? And he goes, that's a very good question. He says, let me talk to the prosecutor.
Should be able to just...
You know what he said? He says, well, we don't know what to do. I said, I'll take the stand. I said, if you let me sit up here and tell you what the hell I did. I said, from where I want to start without him jumping in. He goes, that's fair. 45 minutes I sat up there telling that story. I got all done. Everybody goes, that's what happened. I believe him. And I walked out.
Good for you. That's good. Gotta like it when it works out in your favor.
Yeah, it really does.
They were like, we don't want to listen to this guy for another 5 minutes.
And I don't think they don't want to hear a state national go all about,
But I kind of did it probably like a state national would.
just know where you belong in
This
your
is
lane and
some
put them in their place, being able to prove who you are, what you are, and know your rights. And
I think this is worth looking into, people. I'm going to start doing some research on it and studying it.
Yeah,
I mean,
and-
it's intriguing.
yeah, and even though you change jurisdictions and you're leaving that incorporated system behind, you're not giving up like things like Social Security or federal benefits and things like that, because you are, even though you change your political status, they call it your political status, you change that, but because as a citizen, you still have the right to do all the other citizen functions that you're entitled to. So you're not shooting yourself in the foot, in other words. Some people worry that I lose this and I lose that, and you don't, but there's different ways to file things in that
Well, if you don't
status.
pay into Social Security, though, you wouldn't get no Social Security.
You can if you want. It's like, that's just a benefit. I mean, you choose, you can opt out of paying into it, or you can continue to pay into it. It's up to you.
There's a
But you're
ton of
not
people-
forced to.
There's a ton of
That's
people
the
that collect
difference.
Social Security and never paid into it.
Yeah, I think because there's still bare minimums.
Right.
There's a ton of people that collect that Social Security and never got to collect it.
Probably more than the other, probably.
So,
That's a fact.
well,
Well,
anything else?
are there any questions out there? I wonder. Any questions?
Well, if you got questions, you can send Ed and Dr. John at gmail.com.
Yeah, I'd be happy to come back and address any of those questions too.
Or you can just make a comment on our podcasting on YouTube. We're also going to be on Rumble. You can make a comment on that. Ask us a question.
And go check
Yeah.
Frank out doing his Elvis impersonation.
He's going to be at Gino's for your local people tomorrow night. We're going to give you a plug, Frank,
All right.
for showing up. Excellent show. You need to go see it. My wife and I went and saw his show. It's on a money.
It's a lot of work to try to be that guy. But,
And we didn't
but I
do a
love doing it.
3-minute rant tonight. We usually do a 3-minute rant. You got something that really pisses you off that happens to you daily that we can do a 3-minute rant
Then we'll
about?
do it off the cuff.
Off the cuff. Anything happened to you today that was disturbing?
Not off the top of my head, no.
No? You didn't have a bad time? Nothing happened? It really said, man, I hate when this happens. It
Like
happens all the
Beyonce
time.
halftime show didn't piss you off.
What's that? I didn't watch it.
This is their 3-minute rant. Rant about a rant. So that didn't piss you off? No, the Beyonce, okay, well, that's
I
the
didn't watch
greatest
it either.
show ever.
Well, I just got to say that, God bless that poor woman that got taken out on the subway. That was really terrible.
Yeah, that's just another.
And that guy was deported,
right.
Yeah.
and he got back over here.
Well, you have another instance where a guy that's been deported twice actually hit a sheriff's deputy head on in Nevada and killed him.
Yeah, and he's been deported twice.
Twice he was deported.
That's going to change, baby, I'm telling you.
I hope.
Hopefully, we're going to take out the...
Well, if you bring back common law courts, it's God's law. It's, do not harm, do not trespass, and
I agree.
and that's eye for an eye, God law.
For the record, I have no
And they
problem.
wouldn't waste any time sitting on death row for 3, 4, 5 years. It would be like, okay, judgment, go out back and
Right.
do your business, like done.
Frank,
Like the
you've
Old
been a
West.
great guest tonight. Really interesting stuff.
pretty enlightening.
I mean,
a lot of stuff that
deep,
but
I
that
was
was
not
deep.
expecting.
People
it.
need to be empowered about, getting back to your jurisdiction where you belong and reclaiming that birthright. And the more you relearn history the way it should be, the more empowered and smart you feel about handling all this stuff, because it's overwhelming at first. So when you start getting into it, you just don't be scared, because it seems like a lot when you first get into it.
Oh, it's a lot.
But it soaks in. You start to get that, once you ride that vibe and understand like your empowerment and how do you need to operate, and if you ever do fall into a situation where you need to fall back on it and use it, you're educated.
Well, you definitely got me interested. I'm going to be looking into it and checking it out.
I think there's more pros and cons with it. Really,
Sounds as if
and actually, who doesn't want to be back under God's law? You're just supposed to be naturally under,
Agreed.
with your inalienable rights under this beautiful country with its constitution, social contract with the people. The government, especially the states created the federal, and the overreach is stupid. It should be very simple. Coin money, infrastructure, handle our borders, and handle our disagreements between the states. That's it. That's all they're there for. Everything else is just ridiculous. So eventually, hopefully, you get those common law courts back up in our states, and it's growing, and then you're going to see a lot of changes and a lot of vacates of courts and offices on the incorporated level. It's going to be very, very impressive to see.
Sounds good.
Can't wait.
One more thing. Great Lakes Brewing Company and Harley Davidson, I'll expect a small check next week for the free advertisement on the podcast.
Fueled by Christmas, yeah. Merry Christmas, everybody.
So get your checkbook out.
Just a small monetary donation.
Yeah, just a small one to help us out with the podcast. Maybe we'll put another one of your beers on the table. Was that it?
Yep.
That's all I got.
Yep.
I'm
Thank you very
Lynn.
much.
I'm
Thank you.
Dr. John.
Frank Worley.
This was Frank. Thank you very much, Frank. Cheers. Good night, people. Thanks for watching.
Merry Christmas.
Little Ed and Dr. John at gmail.com. Email us. We'll be on Rumble and we'll be on YouTube.
John keeps it straight and making sure it's tight. Together they're a force. A podcast duo so fly. Bringing truth and wisdom. Reaching for the sky. And Dr. John.